Scott's been on the board for how long, Scott?
Pushing 4 years, I believe.
Pushing 4 years. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sure you'll probably get into a little bit of that, but I did want to mention that he's been on the board. He's been for 4 years. They're a sponsor. They're a super good friend of the chamber, and Scott's a pretty cool person. So Scott, I'm going to just let you go ahead and take over, and you can tell your story if you would.
Now that I have it on camera, you calling me a pretty cool person, I'm ready to just shut it down and move on from here. It's early this morning. As Steve mentioned, I am the Vice President of Operations and Assistant General Manager here at WHACC Thistledown. Just to kind of give everybody the lay of the land, we do have two properties here in Cleveland. We have WHACC Casino downtown in downtown Cleveland, and then we have WHACC Thistledown Racino out here in North Randall. The primary difference between the two is who we're governed by. So downtown is governed by what we call the OCCC, or the Ohio Casino Control Commission, and they're allowed to have a full-on casino the way their gaming license works. So you'll see the table games and video poker down there. If you come out here to WHACC Thistledown, because we're associated with Ohio Lottery Commission, we can only have games of chance. So we have obviously the horse racing, and then we have what we don't call them slot machines, we call them video lottery terminals, or VLTs for short. So we have VLTs, Keno, and the aforementioned horse racing. So those are the primary differences between the two, and it's probably the most frequent question we get as people walk in and go, well, where's the blackjack? Well, unfortunately, there isn't any blackjack. So I thought I would spend just a couple of minutes telling you about myself and how I got into the industry, and kind of work our way to how I arrived in Cleveland, and most importantly, here in North Randall, Warrensville area. I grew up about 3 hours east of here in northwestern Pennsylvania, about another hour and a half east of Erie, southeast of Erie, in a little town called Bradford. Got into the food and beverage industry as a teenager who just needed to make a couple bucks washing dishes. Ended up going to culinary school directly out of high school in Pittsburgh, culinary school called Pennsylvania Culinary. Graduated with an associate's degree in culinary arts, which I later found out is simply a piece of paper that says I can flip eggs, which is a true statement. I can flip eggs, and I do it quite well. But really that just opened the door to get a couple of interviews. I ended up on a whim moving out to Las Vegas at the ripe age of 19 with this associate's degree in culinary arts, thinking that I was going to go set the culinary world on fire. That was 1997, November 97. I would not, in reflection, call it setting the world on fire. I went out and got a job as a cook's helper in an employee dining room at a casino called Boulder Station, which is a locals casino about 7-8 miles off the strip out there. I, as a cook's helper, wasn't allowed to touch any hot food. I stocked a salad bar and I made cold sandwiches for the employees. And I tell our new hires this every week in orientation on Tuesday afternoons, because I think it's important for people to know that getting into the casino industry doesn't necessarily take a whole lot of effort. Really, it's filling out an application and getting a job, and then building some relationships and working hard and learning everything that you can learn. So I did that for a while, and ended up cooking in the steakhouse for that casino called the Broiler. Did that for a while. Had a roommate that was working at the Four Seasons. Got an interview there. If you've been to Vegas, the top 5 floors of Mandalay Bay, that big gold building at the south end of Las Vegas Boulevard, those top 5 floors are in a long-term lease with the Four Seasons. So they have about 400 hotel rooms, and then on the ground floor they have some banquet space, a couple of restaurants and things. So I joined them as a cook, worked my way through. I always tell this story because I think it's telling of young people as they get into an industry these days. I had not done a good job of preparing myself for the professional industry or the hospitality industry from an interviewing standpoint. And I got to interview for a manager in training position at the Four Seasons with the then assistant general manager. And I remember this day very vividly. I remember his admin walking me to his office. I remember the tie he was wearing. His name's Vince Parada. His name placard on the desk. And I sat down. I completely went blank. I was completely unprepared. And I bombed that interview in a very special kind of way. It was, in hindsight, it was amusing. In the moment, it was terrifying. But I had never prepared for something like that. And it's something that I talk about a lot with our new hires and people that haven't been in the industry for a long time, is just making sure that you understand the message that you want to convey during an interview and what your aspirations and your goals are, so you can communicate that to the folks that you're interviewing with. Needless to say, things panned out in the long run. That's where I got into front of house leadership at the Four Seasons in my mid-20s. Ended up following a boss of mine to the MGM Grand, where I got to be eventually the general manager of their buffet. At the time, I believe it was the largest buffet in the continental United States, about 640 seats. Just a monster volume restaurant, and kind of found a little bit of my niche, which was high volume food and beverage. I did that for a while, about a year, ended up going down to room service, where I became the director of room service at the MGM Grand. 5,000 room hotel, just a very intense environment, but a great place to cut your teeth in the industry. So I did that for a couple more years and ended up going back to stations as a restaurant manager right at the beginning of 2007, just before the economy took a turn for the worse. And they had started remodeling a couple of their restaurants and asked me to reopen one, and that went well, and I reopened another, and eventually worked my way into a food and beverage director position, which I did at 4 different properties for Station Casinos. If you've been out to Vegas, Red Rock, Boulder Station, Sunset Station, and Texas Station, I spent time over that 7-year period as a food and beverage director for all 4 of those locations. And then I, to be honest, got tired of the casino industry, or so I thought, and left and joined a entertainment venue called Brooklyn Bowl on the Las Vegas Strip. Sits just about 150 yards off the Strip in a shopping plaza there, right next to the Flamingo. Did that for 2 years, got to see about 300 live concerts over that 2-year period. We did a lot of concerts, a lot of big hospitality events. We did Google's Christmas party one year, which was just insane. They came in and turned the club into New York City. There was turnstiles that you had to drop a coin into to walk through the turnstiles, and they had skaters and all these different New York City style entertainment. Just an amazing experience. And then somebody that I'd worked for in Las Vegas a couple years before that reached out to me and said, "Hey, as I recall, you're from northwestern Pennsylvania. We've got a great opportunity in the Cleveland area." And I didn't think much of it, but I was in my personal situation gave me the freedom to do a little movement if I chose to. So I came out here, and it turns out there was quite a few people that I had worked with back at stations that were with WHACC now, or at the time that was early 2016. And I flew out here and interviewed in April, was offered the job, and moved out here in June of 16. What a great organization. It's basically built by a group of people with a great deal of casino experience that kind of always wanted to do it their own way. And the result of that is WHACC. So that leaves us, initially, when things first started, when gaming first rolled out here in Ohio, the 4 casino licenses were given out, and then 7 additional racino licenses were given out. As many of you know, Dan Gilbert, formerly involved with the company, really got us off to a great start. We had a property in Detroit, 1 in Cincinnati, and 2 in Cleveland. Through the transition of Dan exiting the gaming industry, we sold off the property in Detroit, we sold off the property in Cincinnati, and we're left with the 2 properties here in Cleveland. We are one of the smaller gaming companies, but I think something that we have found our niche on is because our only 2 properties are located in the Cleveland area, we're really able to focus on what Cleveland looks at and what that Cleveland guest is looking for. And when you're able to take a few really wonderful gaming minds and focus on just one segment of the population here in Cleveland, then you can really provide them with what they're looking for. I think we've built a pretty fair reputation for ourselves throughout the community. Now, downtown does see more of the transient business, more of the travelers, but any of you that have driven by our little corner here at Warrensville and Emory, I think, there's not a whole bunch of cars just randomly swerving left off of the 480 and pulling into our parking lot. We have, a very local clientele, a lot of repeat guests. Probably 80% of our clientele comes here on somewhat of a regular basis. The horse racing is an aspect that I hadn't experienced, although we have the race books in Las Vegas, certainly not from a live perspective. So we do house 1,050 horses out on the backside. And if you drive by, sometimes that's hard to wrap your mind around. But there's dozens of barns out there. And we run right now, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 live races a day. And we will run those for 100 days this year from late April till mid-October. So kind of another layer of excitement. We just did the Kentucky Derby here on May 1st, had a great turnout. The weather was wonderful. I think a few of you have come by on a race day. I would tell you it's an awesome experience when the weather works with us. As Wayne has reminded me in the past, I have not had the best of luck with the weather. On some occasions, we've had a couple of rained out days, which compresses things inside. But then I thought I'd talk just briefly about, the elephant in the room, how COVID affected us and how we handled that. And I'm actually very proud of the way our company handled it. When we were lucky enough to be able to keep specifically a couple of our purchasing people on and a handful of other team members during the pandemic, during the time when we were shut down. And I recall that day, I think it was March 13th of last year, and we got word that we were going to be shut down. And everyone came running to my office and said, you've been in this industry for 20 something years. What do we do? And I laughed and I said, I have no idea. I've opened a bunch of casinos, but I've never closed one before. I have no idea what we're supposed to do. But we naturally just shut down in the most organized fashion that we could. And then in mid-June, we were allowed to open back up. And in that downtime, we spent an immense amount of energy, effort, getting ourselves organized to open up. We were able to get our hands on the appropriate cleaning materials, the hand sanitizers, the wipes, masks, all of these things. And then that coupled with, if you've walked through here, we've got a pretty big footprint. So the social distancing came a little bit more natural for us because we're so spread out. If you visit us pre versus post-pandemic, you'll see we have a lot more carousels or round-shaped configurations versus rows of games. It keeps people from facing each other directly, and it spreads them out a little bit more. We put our EVS, or Environmental Services team, in bright yellow shirts that reference that they were there to clean, with a cleaning message on the shirt. So it was very in our guest's face that we were following all of the guidelines provided by the state, all the guidelines provided by the CDC. We focused on social distancing, the sanitization of the high touch areas, electric static sprayers coming through every single night. We were able to purchase a couple of those. So I think what we did is we spent that late June, July, August, allowing our guests to come in, see what we had done to react and set ourselves up for a safe, fun environment in a time when, quite frankly, there wasn't a lot for Americans and certainly Clevelanders to do. As we exited the summer, there was no, it gets cold around here. There's not a lot of choices for entertainment. And I think people felt safe coming here. I think we did a good job of showing them that they were going to be safe. And we saw that we captured some guests that maybe we wouldn't have had the situation been different. So we've been able to come out of this picking up a few new guests and looking forward to tomorrow. As everybody knows, the majority of these restrictions are going to be lifted and we're going to be able to turn on some more of our games. We've had anywhere between 30 and 40% of our games, as many as 45% of our games turned off for quite some time. So we'll be turning those back on. And then anybody that's been here since beginning of April would have seen Revel Oak, which is the name of our new outdoor gaming facility. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. It's the only carpeted outdoor gaming facility that I'm aware of. It is 50% open air, which is the state regulation. We do allow smoking out there. And what we did is we built this great expansion. It's 2 levels. We put some of the latest and greatest games out there. And coming into, late spring, early summer in Cleveland, it's just some of the premier weather for just enjoying some fresh air and sitting outside. And we've had a, great reaction from our guests from it. And they seem very engaged with it and enjoying it. And we also kept our outdoor gaming area over on the racetrack side as well. A lot of people expected us to shut that down, but we didn't, because we knew we were coming into live racing season, and that gives you the ability to game at a VLT while watching the horse races, which is another experience that's unique to our property. So really excited of where we're positioned right now, and looking forward to the future to come. So I think that's about my spiel, Steve. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has, whether it's related to the gaming or hospitality industry or how we see ourselves positioned, anything of the nature.
Yeah, that was great, Scott. Thank you very much. That was excellent. And yeah, I do have a question, and then if anybody else does that, but just because I remember so well, and I've been around for so long, and the history of Thistledown, and you want to say it's ups and downs, but it was really it's ups and then down for the longest time. And then, things started to change, and I don't have the years right at all. And I think you're saying 2016, but I'd like to know what it felt like coming into Thistledown that has not had the best history in the past so many years. And what were the biggest challenges for you at that time? What was the big challenge for you?
I would tell you when I pulled into this, gaming started in 2013 in Ohio. I got here in 16, but the original plan for Thistledown was not for it to stay here. The original plan was that it was going to eventually move south down further towards Akron. And at some point that decision was next, and we decided to stay. But when I arrived in April of 2016, I pulled into a parking lot full of potholes, a broken down mall across the street that had virtually been condemned, a lovely existence, formerly a hotel at the corner of Northfield and Emory that was quite the eyesore. And this big, at the time, brick building that I specifically thought it looked like a pet mortuary of some type. And I had no idea what I was doing here or why I had just flown on a 5-hour flight from Las Vegas, running one of the coolest entertainment venues in the country. But I met with our then general manager, Scott Lockey, who's now the general manager downtown. And I heard his and our company's vision for the place. And construction had just opened up the expansion. We call it the golf section, but where you'll find Mill Creek Grill and Nona Plaza. They had just built the parking garage. They were in the process of repaving all of the parking lot. Interesting thing, when I got here, valets to park 400 to 500 cars a day because our parking was atrocious. And as we built the parking garage, as we repaved the lot, as we shifted our valet operation to another area, over the next couple of years, we went from parking 400 to 500 cars a day to 40 to 50 cars a day. Turns out our guests didn't care if they had valet parking. They just wanted convenient parking where they didn't drive through 8-inch potholes. So I know it's a very minor detail, but it's just interesting as you understand what your guests' desires are. We were so headstrong that we had to have this huge valet department, and we had free valet, and we put free valet up on our marquee, and we advertised it. And as it turns out, no one cared. So we learned from that experience, and now we have just a ton of very convenient, very close parking that's well taken care of. We have our own on-property security, but we also work with a third-party company that employs some of the North Randall police officers here. So at night, we have North Randall police here. We make sure that the environment provided is safe. And we started to clean up, and we put the new facade on the building. We put down new carpet, and we updated our games to some of the most the most recent games to come out. We put those on the floor, and we started to realize that the perception was changing. We started getting a clientele that had a little bit more money to spend, and was here to have a good time. And then, as it turns out, as everybody knows, that mall comes down, that hotel comes down, and Amazon comes in, and all of a sudden, this lost corner that you're referencing, Steve, with a dilapidated racetrack and a mall that hadn't seen a human walk in it in a number of years, has turned into one of the premier corners in the area, and you can see it. And if you talk to people that have been coming around North Randall for a number of years and they haven't been here for a few years, and they come out and they drive by, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the changes that have taken place. Yeah. And it's really wonderful, and it's been great to be a part of. It's been great to see the growth. And then you throw on this most recent project in Revel Oak with the new outdoor gaming space, by far the largest in the state. And all of a sudden we're turning heads. And if you look at those monthly reports that come out in the newspaper, it shows that we've been able to, we're seeing success, and people are desiring to come here and check out what we consider a very new experience.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I just wanted to hear you say, what am I doing here?
Well, you've heard my story before. Listen, that was the tame version. The reality of what was going through my mind was a version I wouldn't share in public. It was more of, what am I doing here, and what was the guy that called me thinking? But look at now, this great new facade, a parking garage, great parking, great up-to-date facility. And still the history of the horse racing that's coupled now with the gaming has been able to thrive in a way that it simply would never have been able to. Horse racing is somewhat, back in the 70s and 80s, when that was the only gaming available outside of Vegas and Atlantic City, it was a really big deal. And its popularity had dwindled, but it's starting to see a comeback now, and a lot of that has to do with it being coupled with gaming. So it's great. It's really wonderful to see.
Anybody else have any questions for?
Yeah, I have a question. One is the horse racing and the casino separate businesses, or are they all in one? The reason I'm asking that is that at the beginning of your talk, you were saying that you were not allowed to have other than games of chance. That's why the slot machines, you only have slots and no tables. But horse racing is sort of like, it's not just totally luck. It's, there's some thinking involved and some planning. And so I don't know why they let you do the horse racing and not, blackjack or poker or something.
This is my favorite question. It's also the one I answer most frequently. The reason is the Ohio Racing Commission partnered with the Lottery Commission. So basically, we report to the Ohio Lottery Commission. And as you know, lottery is all game of chance. So being that we're governed by them, they implemented the rules of all games, only games of chance. So the horse racing was here, and that's how we got coupled with them, but we're overseen by the Lottery Commission, which is all games of chance, and that's how it was established.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay.
Listen, there's been conversations here and there, but I think if you've watched the news at all, squarely the state's attention is focused on the sports gaming piece. Do I think there will be a day where we'll be allowed to have, games, not games of chance, as you mentioned, blackjack and poker and things like that? Most likely at some point, but it's certainly not on the docket today, and it's not something that we discuss on a regular basis. I think the sports betting is kind of at the forefront of things. You'll see it's been approved in quite a few states in the last few years. So I think that's probably the next thing that you'll see. And hopefully, we'll get one of those licenses and be able to have some type of a both on property sportsbook and some kind of online combined. So we're looking forward to that as another opportunity for us, but not until the state gets things worked out.
Great. Anybody else?
I have a question. Scott, I know you and your organization do a lot of training with new employees and trying to keep retention up, et cetera. And you and I have talked over the past just how challenging it is to do that. What are you doing now in order to just, one, staff up? If you're going to open up more games, I would think that was more games, more service, more attendance. So how are you going to manage that part of it? And secondly, where do you look for folks and how do you retain them?
Wayne, you hit the nail on the head. It's probably my biggest challenge to date. So it's interesting. I somewhat liken it to when I moved to Las Vegas in 1997. Being quite honest and frank, some of my opportunities that I was provided, sure, they were because of the relationships that I built, and sure, they were because of the hard work that I put behind it, but they were also out of necessity. Vegas was booming in the late 90s and growing at a rate that it really you couldn't pull enough people into the city to fill all these positions. And now we're in a position where for a multitude of reasons, today it's very challenging to find help. And we've done a ton of different things. And I think we've done a lot of the same things that you're seeing many of the other players out there right now. I mean, if you look at Chipotle right now, if you work part-time for Chipotle, they will give you over $5,000 a year towards your education. Just trying to bring in some of that younger crowd that's looking to get their college paid for. We do a payback program as well here at Property. That's one of the things we advertise. We've started doing some sign-on bonuses. We recently did a job fair just about 4 weeks ago where we did it over a 2-day period. We did a $1,000 signing bonus, same day job offers. We've increased some of our wages. This is a job fair that a few years ago would have brought 200, maybe 300 people in. And I think we got about 50 people to come in, and we ended up getting about 35 new hires. Wow. 18 of them started last Tuesday. I was very excited. We've got another 11 starting today. But it is absolutely the most challenging piece of our business right now is finding help and finding people that are willing and feel comfortable coming out in the environment. Now, I do think that you'll see that start to morph a little bit into a more comfortable environment for people as the restrictions are lifted, as more and more vaccinations are given out. But yeah, Wayne, I know we've discussed this at length. We've had the sign-on bonuses have helped, but really it's a lot of time spent interviewing and a lot of time finding the right people that are here for the right reasons. And hopefully that's to start a career in the gaming industry. And I go up every Tuesday in orientation. I tell my story because I think it's important to know that I got that piece of paper that says that I know how to flip eggs when I was 19 years old, but my career didn't really take off in the gaming industry until my mid-20s. And that had nothing to do with my education. Sure, that was a nice foundation to have. But what really got my career going was simply a lot of what we talk about in the chamber, it was building relationships. It was understanding what jobs are out there, what fit my skill set, what made me want to work hard and be engaged with my company and with my team and my guests. And we're looking for all of those people in every interview because, you know, as my own example, but I also joke, our general manager, she's also our senior vice president of gaming, Angela Matthews. Her first job in Las Vegas at the ripe age of 18 was sitting at a ticket booth selling tickets to the Wayne Newton show. I mean, what a more vastly different job than she does today than selling tickets to the Wayne Newton show versus now running gaming for an entire casino company and being the general manager of one of their properties. But that's what we do, Wayne. We try to provide people with a path to success and a competitive wage and a healthy work environment. And we like to fit a little bit of fun in there when we can too.